so we tightened them with ligatures.
Yeah.
Then we worked on the mandible to square up the bone.
Uh-huh. Well, I never. Holy mackerel, I don't know how you boys do it. Doc, it's a masterpiece. Good work. Easy does it. You'll be all right, son.
Your scars and hematomas will disappear in a couple of weeks. After several months of physical conditioning, the process will be complete.
Hello and welcome to Book versus Movie. This is a podcast where we read books that have been adapted into movies and then we try to decide which we like better, the book or the movie. I am Margot P. of coloniabook.com and this is my good friend and co-host Margot D. of Brooklyn Fit Chick.
Hi everyone.
We are it's summertime, it's hot, and that makes it hard to come up with ideas for this show. And so fortunately for us, we have a very active community on the internet, on Facebook and whatnot. And this is a movie and book that was suggested, right? Wasn't it a listener suggestion? Mm-hmm. So we'll be talking about Seconds. John Frankenheimer is the filmmaker. David Eli is the author. And there's somebody's having the audacity to walk by my house. Sorry, guys. I have a pug chihuahua mix. She's very territorial. We were saying neither one. I had never heard of this book or movie before it was suggested, but I certainly had never read it. So we're going to talk about it in a little bit. But all of this is to say, we're still looking for ideas, y'all. It's for summertime. Let us know what summer books and movies, and it doesn't have to be a book per se with like covers and it doesn't have to be fiction. It could be a magazine article. It could be a song. It could be a play. As long as it is a film that has been adapted from some kind of a literary source, we will consider it. So there's a few places where you can make suggestions, meet other listeners of this podcast, and interact with us on the internet.
Yes, be sure to like our Facebook page. Just type in Book vs. Movie Podcast. The episodes are posted there first, but we're much more interactive in our Facebook group. So you type in Book vs. Movie Podcast group and ask to join in Facebook, and that's where we put a lot of the ideas out there. We always ask, by the way, the movie be on a major streaming app, in addition to the book being something we can get our hands on. We're on Twitter and Instagram and Threads, and in all those places you spell out book versus a movie. And then we have an old-timey email, book versus movie podcast, spelled it all out, at gmail.com. And if you would like some stickers, please send along your address and we will drop them in the mail for you.
And if you really like the show and would like to help keep us in books and movies, you can also support us on Patreon.
Yes, Patreon, Book versus Movie Podcast, Book vs. Movie Podcast. We have about 7 or 8 years worth of shows on there. Some of the episodes that we've been doing the show for 10 years, by the way. So we're putting everything from 2021 and then previews to that on that wall. We have Legally Blonde, War of the Worlds, Fast and the Furious, Fantastic Mr. Fox, Argo. All those are really great books and movies. They are on our Patreon wall. And we use that money just for getting the books and the movies and just putting this show together. So all of you that support us there, thank you very, very much. Also, a way you can support us is to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. And if you could retweet, post the show, that'd be great. Or just tell a friend about the program. That would be amazing.
So today we're talking about Seconds, which is it 1966?
Yes.
Film with Rock Hudson.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Frankenheimer film. We talked about Frankenheimer when we talked about The Manchurian Candidate.
Mm-hmm.
but we don't know. We were just saying before we came on the air, there's not a lot of information available about our author, David Eli. And I'm not even sure if that's how he pronounces his last name. Who knows?
Or Ellie.
It seems like he's still with us.
Yes. From what I gather, he was born November 19th, 1927. He's from Chicago. And then there's just nothing else about him, just very basic information. And so I went back and I looked at newspapers from the time, from when this book was released. And even there, it's kind of a mystery. He did go to Harvard. He did go, I don't know if he's a Tar Heel, but he went to college in North Carolina. But then in one of the reviews I read, it goes, but he wasn't a student there for very long. So it's kind of, I know, it's a little mysterious. And also his last name might be actually something else. This might be a pen name. And then there's somebody else. It was like Leventhal or something that, so he maybe had to get a pen name. He has many writing credits to his resume and was an author when this came out. He worked in advertising, I believe, before he did this. But he had a family. He had a wife. He had kids. He writes this novel. He's written several things since then. But honestly, we just don't know that much about him. Everything I've heard is I haven't seen any interviews. I've seen him mentioned when the movie comes out. I see his name mentioned, like I said, when the book was originally released in 1963. But other than that, he's as mysterious as Arthur Hamilton, I guess. He could just be that mysterious. So that's our author. Sorry. Released in 1963.
I know. We usually have more for you.
I could no interviews, nothing. So he could just be a very private person for all we know. So this book comes out in 1963. It's a very interesting time. It's after the communist scares of the 1950s. So there was this blacklist for actors and creatives. There was for people who were communists or people who were homosexual, that they were targeted by that. By the 60s, that was starting to go away. Kennedy's in the White House. We're not yet in Vietnam, but there is sort of this mistrust of the government that's happening. And this is before Kennedy was assassinated that this book came out. But it's a story about a man named Arthur Hamilton who's 50 and he's unhappy with his life. He's married, has a kid, a daughter. She's grown up. She's married. She's moved to the West Coast. He has a wife, but they're not very close. It just seems sort of like he's sleepwalking through life. And then he gets this opportunity through a friend to go to this particular address to change his life. And the friend is somebody that, I don't know if he knew him in the war or not.
We get the impression that this is somebody he was extremely close to in his younger days.
Right.
So they knew they know things about each other that nobody else would know. He believes that this friend has died. So he gets this phone call from long dead friend who seems to be very much alive.
He's saying like, oh, you know that trophy you have on your shelf, look underneath it. This is what it says underneath. So he realizes it's true. But his friend is giving him an address, and he lives in New York, and he resides outside the city in Scarsdale, but he works in Manhattan. And so he leaves this, and the story just drops you in the middle of it. Like he's at his desk, and he's made the choice. I'm telling everybody I'm going to lunch, but I'm going to go to this address instead. And so he goes to the address, and basically as soon as he gets in there, it's like, okay, you have to change your hat, you have to change this, have to change that. And they send them to a secret meeting. And in this meeting, he finds out that, and it's at a meatpacking place, and it's all very odd. But he finds out basically that if he pays a certain amount of money, they will fake his death. And then he can live any life he wants. He just cannot be in contact with anybody that he's known in his life. So it's like going in witness protection, basically.
And he's not like a terribly unhappy person. He's just
malaise.
Got this sort of, like a malaise. He's middle-aged, quite successful. He's banker, right?
Banker.
Married for a very long time. Golf, security, and housing, and all that is just not good enough.
Well, we get a lot of these stories from men, especially if they served in the war. Like they have a very hard time adjusting because you're living your life for several years where everything counts. Every moment counts, every friendship, every meal, everything.
Right.
And then you go back to your life and it's just your life. You get up in the morning, you get on the train. It can seem a little bit like, is that all there is?
There's also this thing when he first arrived at the mystery address. He walks into this room. He feels like as though he's been drugged, and he walks into a room and there's a woman on a bed there.
Yes.
He has no lechery whatsoever, but he's in this room and he's like, oh, she looks like she needs help. And the next thing he knows, he's basically been pushed onto her. She's like grabbing him and holding him closer to her, and people are snapping photos because he's sort of in a drugged state as he's remembering it. He doesn't know if it actually happened or not.
Right.
He's like, oh, this is weird. And then he's in this room meeting with these people telling him about, all the ways that they can give him this new life. And also that he's, at least to outwards appearances, that he would be younger, which is something else. He's not really younger. It's just a plastic surgery type thing. From all outward appearances, he's a younger man now. And he's intrigued, but he's not 100% sold. And they're like, well, why don't you take a look at this film we have of you assaulting this woman and see how you feel about it then? And they show him this film, and they also tell him, and we're going to spoil everything, by the way.
Right.
They also make a point of telling him, just so you know, you didn't actually assault this woman. Like, we all know that you didn't, but the film looks like you did. We can't have you going around telling people about this little service that we're offering. And when I'm reading the book, I didn't quite understand, but then I kind of got it. He was interested enough to show up at the address, but they really have to protect what they're doing. So he agrees somewhat under duress, and it's $30,000 to fake his own death and start life as what they call a reborn, right? A reborn? Is that what they call them? A reborn, which is a second, which is what the book is called, Seconds. The book's not called The Reborns. It's some time of him like getting the surgery and recovering from the surgery. And I don't think they change in the book. They don't change his eyes or his voice. Right.
Right.
And then they send him to this place. They give him a new identity. He's now a painter, which is something he kind of thought about, like, oh, it would have been nice to be a painter. Assuming this new identity as a successful painter named Tony Antiochus something. He goes by
Wilson.
Tony. Wilson, yes,
Tony.
Of course. And so there he is in this community. It's not a long book, at all. It has a very like Ray Bradbury kind of a feel to it, I thought. So he's in this community, and you feel for the guy. Like, he just on a dumb whim, he shows up at this place, and his whole life as he knew it is now over. He now has to cope with basically losing everything. And yes, he's younger, and he's got this new persona, and he's with all these younger people in this new community, but it's not really a community. He doesn't really belong there. He doesn't really know what to do. And I think he goes and checks on his wife, doesn't he?
He does.
And his daughter?
And his daughter. So he checks on both of them. He's trying to make friends in this new life, but he moves cross country. He has no idea about what these people are. He's in Malibu. He's in Southern California, and he doesn't know what they're into. And so he drinks too much. He's trying to fit in, and he's sad because he's like, well, I'm on the West Coast, but I'm not seeing my daughter. My daughter's now trying to have a baby with her husband. I wish I could be a part of that. And what does my wife think? He used to have paintings back at home. And he just finds out like his daughter doesn't recognize him, which is so sad. And then his own wife is like kind of resigned, like, yeah, it's too bad he's gone. And no, I got rid of his old paintings. And so
she's not too broken up about it.
No, they were both going through the same thing. So he's miserable. He doesn't, and so he's getting drunk at parties. He's not fitting in. And they're very quick to be like, you could be replaced. You could do this a second time. We can replace you. And basically they need these physical bodies as cadavers to take the place of the person that's going to the new life. So if you're not, and there's a supply and demand issue. Like they don't have enough bodies for all the men that want to leave to do this. So when there's a shortage and he's being a pain, they say to him, all right, we'll come back in and we'll give you another chance. We'll give you a second life. You could be a second. And so he's like, that sounds okay. And then he realizes as he's being wheeled in, like, oh, there are no seconds. They're just going to kill me and use my body to give it to someone else. And everybody already thinks I'm dead anyway. So what does it matter? It's not uplifting. This is all like very sad, but
oh yes, no, it's not the feel good hit of the summer for sure.
No.
It's very interesting. I enjoyed it very much, and I could certainly see how one would think it would make a good movie.
It's very Twilight Zone.
Yes,
Alfred Hitchcock Presents, Night Gallery. I mean, whatever shows you want to talk about, like this totally fits that. I would say that the middle part is where it struggles. It's like the beginning and the end are very strong in the middle, but it would anyway. I mean, that's just kind of a...
Yeah, I mean, you can only stretch it out so long, the story.
Right.
Yeah, there's these various encounters that he has with people. And throughout, he's getting phone calls from his friend, Charlie, who gave him the tip off about this in the first place. But the thing is, he's never he's curious about it, but it's not his dream to start a new life. He's just like, no, let me go check this out. So so that's how it ends. It ends that they, spoiler alert, it ends that they kill him and his body goes to, somebody else. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed reading it, though it's a bit of a bummer. I felt a little bit like I wasn't, feel like if I had been of that generation, have read it at the time in real time, I probably would have gotten more out of it. Mm-hmm. I think it's a little bit dated in that way, but yeah, it is very Twilight Zone.
Or Fantasy Island, anything. Mm-hmm. It's just any kind of story like, which Mr. Rourke would say, there's a danger to your fantasy. There's always like, what's the flip side to this? Like, you want this other life, but then that means you're giving up the one that you have. That's the basic story. Mm-hmm. So we have John Frankenheimer, who, as Margot said, he directed the Manchurian Candidate. Thank you.
Which is a great movie.
Which is a fantastic movie. I think it's on our Patreon wall. But he was supposed to direct Breakfast at Tiffany's, but then he disagreed with the direction, and that left him open to do, what did I just mention?
Manchurian Candidate.
Yes, oh my God, I'm so sorry, y'all. So that was the Manchurian Candidate. So this is his second film, or it's early in his career. It's 1966. He's putting this together, and the smart thing he did, he has Rock Hudson, and we should just give some context about Rock Hudson's career. He was in all these movies with Doris Day. He was in several films, not a lot of dramas.
Romantic lead.
Yes.
Or if he was in a drama, like there's that movie, what's that one with Jane Wyman?
Giant.
Where she's blind. She's blind. Oh, yeah, Giant.
Yeah.
He's the romantic lead. He's a big...
6'4".
Yeah, very good looking. And I love the way that they handle this in the movie.
Yeah,
he's so good. Mr. Redford, take notes.
Should we play the trailer and then...
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll play the trailer now and then we'll get into this movie.
Bold, bizarre, terrifying. Rock Hudson, in an astonishing change of pace, stars in Seconds. Rock Hudson as a second, freed from all responsibilities, now ready to taste new pleasures. Rock Hudson as a man who buys for himself a totally new life, a chance to begin again. Every man's dream since time began.
As soon as these people leave, I'm going to attack you. I want you to know that.
I'm counting on it.
Rock Hudson as a man who lives the nightmare of being a second.
Why are you all staring at me like that? Hey, John. Hey, John. Hey, John. Why are they staring at me like that?
They know.
They know what?
They're like you. Reborn.
Oh, Laura!
Screenplay is by Louis John Carlino. Rock Hudson is our lead. As we were just saying, he did a lot of like Doris Day movies, a lot of comedies. He did a few dramas. But in 1966, he wasn't known for being this huge dramatic actor. It was not like Paul Newman or somebody.
Yeah.
He was...
No.
So it was sort of a risk to take him on. He was also very handsome. He was 6'4". Rock said, I'll do this picture, but I think you need to have somebody play the Arthur character in the beginning and then have me as the reveal.
It's so brilliant.
Which is brilliant. And the actor is John Randolph, who is so good as this very sad guy who's just kind of sleepwalking through life.
Pardon me. Could you tell me the way out of this building? Excuse me? I was wondering if you could tell... Excuse me. I'm trying to find... Excuse me. I'm trying to find my way out of the building.
I have a gentleman here who wishes to leave the building.
Yes, that would be Mr. Wilson. Would you have him return to Mr. Ruby's office, please? Mr. Ruby is waiting for him there.
They want you down at the end of the corridor again.
Yes. All right. Thank you.
He's like, I guess I should be happy. I mean, his wife is, they seem like, but there's this disconnect between them. And she's really good too. All the acting here is...
It's a great cast.
Oh my God.
Such a good cast. Many great character actors. And also, you know, I think we cannot understate the importance of James Wong Howe.
Yes.
With this film. James Wong Howe, who we've talked about many times, numerous times. James Wong Howe is a cinematographer who his career went from the 1920s into the 1970s. And he's just an absolute master. And I mean, we talked about him. Let's see, we talked about him with Sweet Smell of Success. 3 films he did in a row. Sweet Smell of Success, The Old Man and the Sea, Bell, Book, and Candle.
Yes.
He also did HUD, Picnic.
Oh my God.
I mean, just so Yankee Doodle Dandy with James Cagney.
Yes.
Remember I mean, that's him too. And I think Funny Lady, I think what he does so brilliantly with this movie is the opening credits are all like distorted and dystopic. They're very like, what is this? Is it a horror movie? What am I watching? It's like, it's this distorted face and eyes and like discordant music. And then we're in this very banal life of this middle-aged man who has a really nice home and his wife is picking him up from work and they're having just like idle chit chat. And it's totally the opposite of what the whole however couple minutes that we've experienced in the opening credits. And you're like, what is this? What's going on? The shots of Wilson in the train station, the angles of very ordinary things. He's just walking through Grand Central Station. But it's so eerie.
Yes. So what they did, and I was saying to Margot on Criterion, they have the commentary track from John Frankenheimer that they put up there. And so it's like 97 or 98 when he did this. But they had hired a Playboy playmate and a hunky guy, an actor, to be in Grand Central, like to make out on the stairs. And they had like a whole film crew around them. So all these people went to them because they thought that was the movie that was filming. But instead they had an actor who carried the film on him, the camera, on him. And then there was another camera in a wheelchair, and they were kind of following these men. And if you've ever been to Grand Central, like that's what it feels like when you're walking there. They make the announcement, then you run to the track to get your train, and then you get on the train and you want to, you don't want to miss it. And he thinks there's somebody following him, and there is, because but they didn't have steady cams at the time. So cameras were very heavy. So they had to sneak around with this stuff, but he follows him to the train, and then he gets home and his wife picks him up. They have dinner. They are in separate beds, and they have twin beds in their bedroom. And the wife comes over to like talk to him for a minute because he seems upset because he talked to his friend on the phone he thought was dead. And he can't even tell her about it. They're just so, and then she tries to some intimacy, like just tries to kiss, and he's like not responding. And so, so he goes to work the next day, and then he takes off at lunch, and he goes to this meat place that it's like secondhand cows. I forget, like they describe it on the truck, but they're at an actual slaughterhouse.
You can tell.
Oh yeah, and
you can tell. It's can tell.
Gruesome.
It's a real thing.
Yeah, and this is when there was a meatpacking district in New York, and nobody went there. Like that was just a place you could smell it. Like you could.
Oh yeah, it smelled like meat.
It smelled like meat, like back in the day. So that's where this place is, where he goes in, and then he has to change his hat. He has to go to another location.
I was going to say, it's been driving me crazy. Where did I know John Randolph, who plays the character that eventually becomes Rock Hudson? He plays Clark Griswold Sr.
Yes.
He's
National
Chevy Chase's
Lampoon's
dad in
Vacation.
Christmas Vacation. Yeah.
He's done a million things.
He's in so many things, all kinds of television. And
a lot of these actors, by the way, were blacklisted in the 50s. So they had these like second careers in their lives, like after all this. So this was perfect for them. Like this whole, so he's very good. They, like in the story, they have a woman, they set him up to like rape this woman on camera. He doesn't do that to her, but it
looks like he did.
It looks like he did. And so he pays the $30,000, and he just thinks like, well, everybody will be better off without me anyway, and I'll just start something new. And he wakes up and he's Rock Hudson, who's very handsome and much taller. They had to like do some things to like even them out.
To make John Randolph look taller.
Right. And then it's Rock, and he does such a good job, once again, of just, here's somebody who's devastatingly handsome and always like entered a room and probably everybody was staring at him like his whole life. And he's now walking around as a guy like that's uncomfortable in his skin. He's not used to this kind of attention. He lands at the airport at LAX, and there's somebody comes over to him like, "Hey, old so-and-so, how you doing? We need to go for a drink." Like that's when he realizes he has somebody's face that has been used before, like that other people know. And so he's like, I thought I was going to be anonymous and just go to this new place. So he has this great life. I think he's in Malibu, this beautiful house.
He's living in John Frankenheimer's house.
In his house with a butler. How much would you love a butler?
He's got a butler. He helps him with everything.
Everything.
And he's a famous artist. Everybody's like, oh, that's the famous artist. He lives in that house in Malibu. Really cool. Although he's he's struggling. He's lonely. He doesn't, he's realizing like, oh, maybe this isn't all it's cracked up to be. And And maybe I was too hasty in, writing off my entire family and friends and life. And the butler keeps encouraging him to like go out and meet people. And we learned over time, like this whole community is all people like this. They're all people who are starting over again. But he's having a hard time, and he goes for a walk on the beach. I don't remember this in the story. Is this in the story?
Salome?
That whole character? Is she in the story at all?
I don't think so. I'm not remembering her. She's played by Salome Jens. And she plays Nora, and she's beautiful, and she's a great actress. She's somebody that he meets along the side of the road, and she takes him to this celebration. And this was a thing that really happened. Frankenheimer heard about this. These are, I don't know, hippies. These are people that get together for a grape stomping session in the mountains, and they play music.
Everybody white, by the way.
Everyone's white. They're all young, and they're like in their 20s and 30s, and they all strip naked, and then they get in this vat with this wine, which looks disgusting to me. I mean, just
ugh.
And it apparently, like, Rock Hudson was like, I am not getting in there. Like, everyone is stomping these grapes.
It's so gross.
But it's also like, it's the young generation versus the new generation. Like, as an artist, do you think he would be into it? Like, he would be, but he's not. He's a banker at heart. He's kind of a square. So he's having a very hard time at this celebration, which goes on, I think, a little too long. It's a little lengthy.
It's a bit long.
It is.
I agree.
And then she's like, why don't we try having a party? So he has a party at his house, and he gets Bellotto, really makes a fool of himself. He can't keep conversations going because he's so uncomfortable. He doesn't. And so the alcohol doesn't help. This woman is trying to help him, but he's not getting it. Like, he's just really uncomfortable and really feels like he made a bad decision. He sneaks away to meet his wife, and she's now a widow. She doesn't appear to be, I mean, who could tell how she feels, but
she seems fine.
She seems fine, yeah. And he's like, hey, your husband and I became really great friends just before he died. And he told me all about his water paintings and his watercolors. And do you have any of those I can take with me? And she's like, nah, I got rid of them all. So also they have filmed him meeting his daughter. But that the movie...
Oh, but then they didn't use it.
They didn't use it because they thought the movie was too long already, which he regrets. And they also... There's some nudity in that scene I mentioned previously, which for 1966 was really kind of racy for some people. That was something that came back into the film. So we should say that when this movie was released, it premiered at the Cannes Film Festival in 1966, and it didn't do well. It got booed. It was actual booze.
Wow.
Yeah. Rock Hudson left very quickly.
Oh,
I know.
It's good. He's great in it.
I cannot tell you with these. I mean, I'm at the age now, like, I've heard enough about things like Cannes Film Festival and Venice Film Festival. Like, people applauded for 10 minutes. And sometimes I watch those movies like, no way. Or,
I know.
Or they were just stretching their legs. I mean, this is not worth applauding for 10 minutes. But anyway, so he meets this woman. They have this party. He gets really drunk. He tries to see his wife. She doesn't care. His daughter doesn't recognize him. He's sad and he doesn't know what to do with his life. So he thinks that he can do a do-over, basically be a second. Like, all right, that one didn't work, but the next time I'm going to be really prepared. I understand what now is going to be emotionally, what I'll have to be emotionally prepared for. I can do this. And so they talk him into it. And so he comes back in. And once again, Will Geer is the old man that talks him into it. So good. I mean, these character actors are just...
Hello, son.
Oh, sir,
I sure hoped you'd make it. Find your dream come true.
What?
I said I sure hoped that you'd make it. Find your dream come true.
I guess I never had a dream.
Maybe that's it. Yeah, that sure might have been it.
Freaking
They're really superb. They
brilliant.
are.
And so he
Yeah.
has this conversation with him and he talks him into, let's try it again. Let's give it another go. And he's like, okay. So then Rock Hudson, 6'4", was an athlete. They put him in a gurney and then they're taking him away. And as he's leaving, the person that is giving him last rites is like, are you Catholic? Are you Jewish? What's your thing? Because he's giving him a goodbye prayer.
Yeah.
And he does, and that's when he realized, like, oh, I'm going to be a cadaver now. I thought I was going to go into another body, and so he freaks out. He's like really upset. Rock Hudson's so big that they put these straps on him. He would break out of them like 4 or 5 times. So then they hired football players to be the orderlies, and they have this leather strap that's like several inches wide to hold him down because he was
substantial.
It is really, and they really stuffed cotton in his mouth, and they so it wasn't acting. I mean, he's really like upset. That's at the end of this movie. Like he's like fighting for his life, and he realizes it's all for naught. Like they need his body because they need another cadaver, and they took his $30,000, and that's that.
Yep.
God be with you, sir.
What's his data?
Wilson, mesomorph, age 51, no current diseases. Requisition from day room stock May 6th. Released for cadaver use last night. CPS number 722. Disposition, death by automobile accident caused by cerebral hemorrhage.
All right. Acid etch.
Yes, sir.
What's the solution strength?
5% of 10 cc's.
Timer. 5 minutes.
You were my best work, Mr. Wilson. I'm sorry it all has to end like this. All right, set him up.
I think we'll put the hemorrhage right under the left ex-occipital in the lingual gyrus. Put that light over here. Good. All right. Relax, old friend. Cranial drill.
And
It sounds like it's a total, but it's a good movie, y'all.
It is.
We promise it's good. No, it's super good. The cast is excellent. The whole thing kind of works together so well. I think the sound, the score is just enough.
Yes.
All of the character actors are so, like, all the people at the party, those men in that like tailor shop where he first goes,
the old man pressing.
Yeah. It works super well, and I'm so sad to hear that about poor Rock Hudson.
It was.
That's so sad.
It bombed. I mean, it didn't do well at the box office. It got okay reviews, but it bombed at Cannes, and so they didn't really. I mean, it was nominated for the cinematography as it should have been, but it's one of those movies that it wasn't till later when it was on The Late Show and then with video that it really sort of took off, and people realized. And it's a perfect movie to watch at home. I mean, but I imagine it would be very like aggravating in a movie theater, but it's also, I think, ahead of its time. It's really way ahead of its time.
I agree. The last shot, and also there was like a lot of stuff, I guess, that was taken out to, like the last shot is I guess, as he's losing consciousness, we're supposed to believe, we see this like very blurry image of, it looks like a man with a child on his shoulders on the beach. I wish we had gotten the daughter, like a little less of the grapes, and
yes,
brought the daughter back.
Yeah,
that would have been good.
That would have been perfect. I think that would have, because the grapes take a while. That's a long scene. But it's just a part of his lack of comfort in his skin, his lack of fitting in. He thinks he doesn't want to be with the squares. He wants to be with the artistic people and be more free and be more loose and be a little more, fancy free. And then he gets that and he doesn't know how to behave. It's uncomfortable for him. So he's just somebody that's like not comfortable in his skin, wants adventure, but then gets it and then just can't deal with it. So in the end, he's just a body.
Yeah.
Which is sad.
So sad.
But it's really good. I mean, it's a good movie. It's a really intense film, and it's got
a great performance. Everybody's so good. But Rock Hudson is really super good in this.
He's especially good.
And
and it was his favorite performance he did in his career.
I get it.
Yeah.
I love him in Giant. That might be my favorite, but this is pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So book or movie?
I'm going to pick the movie.
Yeah, I'm going to pick the movie too.
But I enjoyed reading it.
Yes. It's a very faithful adaptation. Like I said, I don't remember that Nora character being in the book. But I like her in the movie. It's a good summer read. It's a good sci-fi kind of summer read.
Yeah.
Enjoyed it.
It's like those Netflix series, the Black something or other.
Like Black Dahlia?
Not Black Dahlia.
Is that what it was called? No.
No, it's something about the screen on your phone. It's like
Black Mirror.
Black Mirror. It's like that. It's very much a Black Mirror episode, but it's like but it's like 30 years before there was a Black Mirror, or 40. Yeah.
So yeah, it was good. It was excellent. Thank you for the suggestion.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what we're doing next.
We got the suggestion a few weeks ago and we got really excited. So we're going to be covering Suddenly Last Summer. It's the middle of summer. Why not? It's Tennessee Williams. We need more Tennessee Williams in our life. It's a great movie with Elizabeth Taylor and Montgomery Clift. I haven't seen it in a while, but I'm dying to see it again. And it's great for discussion. There's going to be a lot of symbolism. There's going to be a lot.
And Katharine Hepburn.
I believe so.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
Yeah. So that's what we're doing next, everyone. So please feel free to send us your suggestions. All those places I mentioned at the top of the show. Once again, our email is bookversusmoviepodcast@gmail.com. And Margot, where can they find you?
You can find me online at coloniabook.com, and all my social media callouts are at She's Nacho Mama. And where can they find you?
You can find me at brooklynfitchick.com. I'm at brooklynfitchick for Threads and Instagram, and I'm at Brooklyn Margot for TikTok and for Twitter. Okay, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back soon with a new episode. Thank you so much for listening to the Book versus Movie podcast. We're a part of the Frolic Podcast Network. You could find more podcasts you will love at frolic.media/podcasts. You could find us on Twitter, Threads, Blue Sky, and Instagram at Book versus a Movie. Just spelled it all out. We have a Patreon page. Type in there Book vs. Movie Podcasts, where you can find 8 years worth of shows. You can follow Margot D on social media at Brooklyn Margot and also Brooklyn Fitchick. You can find Margot P at She's Nacho Mama. Thank you again for listening, and please be sure to send along your suggestions for the show. Remember, the book needs to be easy to get your hands on, and the movie has to be streaming